All right, I'm in Photoshop, and the first thing we're going to do is make a new brush. I have this image here, a portrait. We're going to use it in a little bit, but right now we're going to build our custom brush. So let's do Command N on the Mac or Control N on the PC, or you can take the long cut file, new menu, create a document of any size, it doesn't matter, so long as it's at least 400 pixels in width and height, okay? It's on a white background. I'm grabbing my brush, and you'll notice if you look way up, you're going to see I can pick a brush. I'm going to tap on that. The very first brush you get is called a soft round. We're going to ask for the hard round, and I'll show you two ways to get this. You can tap the hard round button, or I'm hitting escape right now, or you can just hit the caret. If you look on your period key on the keyboard, the period key, above it, there is a greater than sign that's from math. And if you tap that, it just cycles to the next brush. You'll tap that multiple times and you'll see it cycles through your brushes. I'm going to tap back, or Shift left caret takes you all the way to the first brush again. Shift left. I'm on the very top one. I'm on round, soft again, okay? Escape. So I usually just hit the bracket to the right one time just to see how large my brush is. If I change the brackets, not the carets that we were just talking about, but the brackets, next to the letter P on your keyboard, you've got brackets, and that's a fast way to change the brush size. Left or right bracket. Left bracket reduces, right bracket enlarges. We're going to ask for a very small, and now we see, hard-edged brush. I'm looking up and it says 9. Now it says 8 when I tap the bracket, and so on. I'm just creating a brush, and I'm going to go click and hold the Shift key and drag, and that will give me a nice straight line. Undo. Show you to you again. I'm going to go click while holding the Shift key, drag, just to get a line. Okay, that's going to be our custom brush. I'm going to go select it instead of using the entire page. I'm going to select it with the selection marquee and just cautiously grab around the edges. Not too much white space, but enough. Okay, that's it. We now have a selection. I'm going to let you see, zooming in, you can see that selection. It's encompassing my entire brush. Edit menu, define a brush preset. I'm going to call it line and hit OK. We don't need this file any longer. It was existing just in order for me to create a brush. So File menu, close this file, save it, don't save it. We're back here. Now you see my brush will travel with me, but the brush, if you lose it, will always be chronologically the last brush you created. And there's a shortcut to get to the very last brush, as I showed you earlier. Shift left caret goes to the top of your brushes. Shift right caret goes to the last of your brushes. Now, I've also opened this panel here called Brush Settings, just so I can see and kind of customize what I'll be doing with this artwork. Brush Settings is this panel. You have 3 panels, one for custom brushes, your brush tips, and here's how you customize a brush, this third item over here on the top left. I'm going to wiggle my brush so you can see what I'm talking about right there. And if you tap it, it hides my panel. If you show it, it shows the panel back and forth. It's just a toggle. I'd like to see it. And you can see what's going to happen to your brush. If you were to drag it, this would happen. I'm going to do a couple of extra magic things. I'm going to hit the Shape Dynamics, and I'm going to change my size. Jitter is the goofy word for randomize, and you can see below what it's going to do. It's going to randomize my brush. Then I'm going to click on the word scattering or check that and say scatter along both axes. You see that? And I'm going to enlarge the slider to its maximum. All right, so it's just changing that around. You know what? I look at this and I think that would be a cool brush, but let's go back to Shape Dynamics for a second. Notice that you have more than size jitter, which is randomized. You have minimum diameter, at least as large as the file will be. But here's an angle jitter, and that would be kind of fun. Let's roll the angle randomization, and you can see at the bottom there what it's going to do to my brush if I were to drag with that brush. That brush is now set. I'm going to close the panel. If you'd ever like to save this brush with all of those recent customizations, you go back to this top section here where the brush, top left, you can pop up on that, hit the little save, give that a name, and that doesn't just save your brush, but it saves all the customization, the jitter, the angles, all those kinds of things. And I've done that already, and I've called mine the scatter line brush. That's how it works. Now, if I were to click and drag, you'd see something crazy. Whoa, whoa, undo. I just dragged one line one time, undo. Okay, that's the brush we're going to use. I'm undoing that again. You see it's kind of waiting. Let's have a little fun with this image. We're going to show you a magic trick with the channels. First of all, let's go to the image, adjustments, and do hue saturation, or we can do a quickie for desaturate completely. There's hue saturation. I can make my color more vivid down to grayscale, but there's a fast shortcut to go to complete grayscale, and that's called desaturate. And normally I wouldn't play with the image adjustments because they're destructive image adjustments rather than the layer adjustments, but since we're going to use this for a channel, ultimately a stencil, a mask, it's perfectly fine to use the image adjustments on a mask. Back to image adjustments. After desaturate, we're going to go run one called threshold. And threshold takes the image and it makes it pure white or pure black. And at what threshold does it make it white or choose black? And it's right here. By default, it's right in the middle of 256 total colors from 0 to 255, 256 total shades. And I can play with that and adjust how much detail I like to see in my image. I'll be happy with that. I'm going to say, okay, you decide with your portrait when you run threshold, just to your own eyesight, whatever you feel is pleasant. Okay. Here's the fun. Command A on the Mac or Control A, select all or select menu, all, and we're going to cut. Command X or Control X or edit, cut, it's gone. Now, if you just did that and you see a black background, it's because your background color was not set to white, it was set to black, and you could undo and make sure that these are set to white and black. I'll do that. Command Z, you reset to black and white by clicking that little dot, or hit the letter D before you cut, Command X, and it guarantees you get a white background if that happens to you. Now here I am in the Channels panel. Where did that come from? Windows menu, Channels. I'm just making sure there's a checkbox by that. I can see it. I'll go find it on my screen. There it is somewhere. And in the Channels panel, dumbest name ever for a stencil drawer. That's a drawer full of stencils. Let's create a new stencil. There's a new stencil button or a new channel in Adobe's, right? But let's speak English. The new channel, I'm going to click the new channel, tap. Let's paste the last thing we copied. Command V or Control V or edit, paste. There it is. Now what I really like is for this black stuff to be the hole in my stencil cardboard. I want to paint inside that black stuff. So I have to invert. And that is Command I, Control I, or Image Adjustments. Invert. Now there's a select inverse, and that's not what we're talking about. We don't want to select the opposite. We actually want to take the image itself and invert it. There, I'm set. If I go back to the word RGB, those letters, don't click the eyeball, not here. Click on the word RGB, and then I'm going to do a magic trick where I Command key or Control key click on the PC. Command key, click the thumbnail of the channel, and it loads that like it's a stencil. Now I could paint with our wild brush inside this shape now. But there's one other thing I'd like to do, and I'd like to be excited when I watch the paint job happen. And so I'm going to hide my selection. The selection itself can be hidden. Now, I don't want to see it, and I don't see a shortcut here, but if I do Command H, the very first time I run that Command H, it'll say, do you want to hide Photoshop or hide the extras. Click hide the extras and it just hides your selection. The selection is still there. It's still loaded. It's still working, but I don't want to look at it. I don't want to see the dancing ants as they travel around my image. So Command H hides, and now I click and drag, and that wild paintbrush is only allowed to paint inside our stencil. Now I just did one swoop and let go, but it kept drawing. So I'm going to do one swoop and let go again, and it continues to draw. You see it's working. And I just try to make sure that most of my swipes go right across the eyes because I do want those to have the most emphasis in my image. And so I'm going to do another swipe across the eyes. Eventually it'll fill that in with some detail. I'm getting happier. And when I'm ready for my big finish, one more swipe. I'm going to just do a big swipe around the edges completely, all around the outside edges, and let it just sort of darken around those corners as it catches up to me here. And that's it. That's the trick.